Most people think illegal Jeep modifications mean something obvious, like a ridiculous straight pipe or a cartoonish lift, but the real stuff is quieter. Today we're counting down 8 illegal Jeep modifications that deliver real results, and the last one is the line most builders swear they'll never cross, until they do. Let's start with number 8, the ECU tune that turns your Jeep into a beast. 20 to 30% more power from one cable and one file. That number alone explains why people do it. You plug in, the file flashes, and your Jeep suddenly feels awake in a way it never did before. The throttle answers faster. The lag disappears. Driving stock starts to feel dull, almost broken. That's the moment the thought shows up in your head. If it can feel this good so easily, why would anyone stay stock? What doesn't get talked about is what that file changes. Many of these tunes relax factory limits on fuel, boost, and timing. Those limits weren't random. They were built to keep emissions under control, heat under control, and wear under control. Some tunes go further and shut off onboard checks so the dashboard stays quiet. No warning lights, no complaints. Everything feels normal. That quiet is the real trap, because a calm dash doesn't mean the Jeep is clean. It only means the system that tells you something is wrong has been muted. When you realize that, a question forms. If the tune turned off the warnings, what else did it turn off to make the numbers look good? The EPA doesn't leave that question open. They use the phrase defeat devices and say these changes are illegal and undermine emissions controls. That wording matters. It means the law sees this as tampering, not tuning. A laptop session becomes a legal problem the moment it alters how emissions are handled. Then the penalties land. Over $5,700 per violation for individuals. Over $57,000 for shops or dealers. Each tuned Jeep counts on its own. EPA reports already show 170 civil cases and more than $55 million in penalties in only a few years. That's not a warning. That's enforcement. Outside your Jeep, the air matters. Many Americans live with asthma. Extra NOx and particles don't stay in one garage. They move through neighborhoods, sidewalks, school routes. The power feels personal. The cost spreads out. Once the engine feels alive, most owners start chasing something louder to match that feeling. And that's where the exhaust comes in. Power is the bait, sound is the prize. After the tune, builds chase a voice to match it, one cut, one missing cat, and everyone hears you coming from miles. No. Number 7. Straight pipe. Exhaust that gets you noticed. A straight pipe Jeep never sneaks up on anyone. You hear it first. Loud, sharp, aggressive. Removing the catalytic converter feels like a clean move. Less weight, less restriction, faster revs. The cat looks like a boring can, so cutting it out feels harmless. Almost logical. What that can actually do is easy to ignore. Inside it, rare metals convert carbon monoxide, unburned fuel, and NOx into less harmful gases before they ever hit the street. Your engine can't do that job. Once the cat is gone, nothing replaces it. Everything dirty goes straight into the air around you. This isn't a gray area. Removing a working catalytic converter is illegal in all 50 states. What people don't factor in is how quickly a loud, catless exhaust attracts paperwork. Inspections fail. A traffic stop turns into a visual check. Some states add their own citations on top of federal rules, and shops won't touch it. The sound is instant, but the hassle sticks. Health groups repeat the same concern because it never goes away. Tens of millions already live with lung disease. Tailpipe pollution makes breathing harder for people who didn't choose your mods. That's why calling it just noise misses the point. Straight pipes feel raw and free. But once the cat is gone, the next complaint is usually soot. And that pushes diesel owners toward a delete that causes even bigger problems. You're still in? Wild. The craziest Jeep mod on this list hasn't even shown up yet, and the payoff is bigger than you think. Stick around. What's coming next might actually change your mind. Number 6. The DPF and EGR delete that makes your diesel Jeep run free. Diesel particulate filters remove 80 to 95% soot when they're doing their job. That's the DPF's entire purpose. Pull it out and the engine feels better right away. Faster spool, lower temps, sometimes better mileage because Regan cycles stop. The truck feels smoother and stronger, but the soot doesn't vanish. Health researchers describe ultrafine particles as a serious concern for public health. They're small enough to travel deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream. Without a DPF, those particles don't get trapped. They leave the exhaust and spread through streets, neighborhoods, and school zones with nothing slowing them down. EPA data already shows hundreds of thousands of diesel pickups had emissions controls removed over the last decade. That's not a few builds. That's pollution on the scale of millions of vehicles added to the road. One delete feels small. Thousands turn into a measurable air problem. The rule is clear. DPF and EGR deletes are violations unless emissions still meet standards. Civil penalties can reach 5 figures per vehicle. Proving compliance after a delete is rare and expensive. Most owners never even try. A deleted diesel feels strong and clean from the driver's seat, then many builds go taller and heavier. That's when the risk stops being about emissions and starts being about physics. Just when you think things can't escalate, owners take it vertical. The ground drops, the laws get fuzzier, and the danger isn't just numbers anymore. Something bigger starts to loom overhead. If you are still watching, remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a single Jeep insight. Number 5. The lift kit that turns heads and changes. Crash math. 42,939 people killed and about 2.5 million injured in 1 year of U.S. crashes. That number alone changes how lifts look on public roads. Big tires and tall lifts make sense on trails. More clearance, better angles. At low speed, it feels controlled and capable. Traffic isn't a trail. When a tall Jeep hits a smaller car, bumpers and frames don't line up. Crash energy skips crumple zones and goes straight into windows and weak points. The feeling of safety from sitting higher disappears in an instant. That's why states set strict limits on bumper height and headlight height. Exceed those limits and inspections fail. Tickets follow. Lawsuits get complicated. All safety testing is done at stock height. Once you go far beyond that, there's no data backing up how the vehicle behaves in a crash. From inside the Jeep, the road feels smaller and less threatening. That feeling can be misleading. Height changes who gets hurt when things go wrong, not just how the Jeep looks. Many drivers respond to that exposure by trying to feel hidden inside the cabin, and that leads straight into the next modification. When you stand out on the road, it's only natural to want to hide. But what if fading into the shadows actually turns every drive into a guessing game? No. Number 4. The window tint. That hides everything, including danger, 30 to 50% VLT. That's the number most states set for legal front window tint. When you hear VLT, that's what it means. How much daylight actually gets through your glass. An ultra-dark tint makes your Jeep feel cool, private, and safe from prying eyes. Sun glare drops, your stuff disappears behind the glass, and the cabin feels like your own little cave. The problem starts the moment you try to see a pedestrian or a cyclist at night, or in pouring rain. That same darkness cuts your ability to spot movement on the street. Split seconds count. A kid steps out from between cars and you see them later than you would with clear glass. It's not just about your comfort anymore. Reaction time shrinks, and what feels private gets risky for everybody else. Cops deal with this daily. They want to see inside a vehicle for their own safety. Stops get tense fast if they can. One crackdown in Ireland caught dozens of cars in a single weekend for illegal tint, and one driver measured 15% VLT where 65% required. That driver had to pull the film off, pay fines, and take penalty points. No arguments, just numbers. When tint makes the world too dark, a lot of drivers try to fix it by going too far in the other direction, adding more and more lights up top. That's the next move that flips from helpful to dangerous, but in a totally different way. When darkness outside meets high voltage up top, the line between safety and chaos blurs. What's it like to control the night until someone else pays the price? No. Number 3. Roof LED bars that light up. Trouble 20 to 50 inch LED light bars? That's what a lot of Jeep builds add for better vision. These things throw out thousands and thousands of lumens, lighting up the whole block. Off-road at night, you can see rocks, animals, dips in the trail that stock headlights would miss. On a dark trail, you want all that light. But wired for the street, that's where things turn. NHTSA says night glare and poor visibility are behind thousands of crashes every year. Older drivers especially can get blinded for a second, losing track of lanes or brake lights. Light bars and pods aren't DOT approved for pavement, and their wide, unfocused beams can blind drivers coming at you, or even people behind you in mirrors. That's why laws in most places demand you cover or turn off all extra lights on the highway. Police spot illegal lights a mile away. If you get in a crash, a glare complaint can get pinned on you. Insurance companies pay attention to that stuff. From the driver's seat, it all seems safer and clearer, but the other guy's view is worse, not better. When you keep adding mods, eventually it's the inside of the Jeep that gets stripped next, and what you pull out starts to matter even more for survival. All that extra light and armor on the outside, but inside? Owners start stripping away the only things keeping them alive when luck runs out. Would you dare? No. Number 2. Pulling airbags and safety gear for a race. Feel 61% lower risk. That's how much seatbelts and airbags together cut your risk of dying in a crash. That's not a theory. That's real people surviving what would have killed them otherwise. Strip out airbags, yank seat sensors, remove seatbelt pretensioners. Suddenly you drop some weight, the cabin feels tougher, and everything seems race ready. But that protection is gone, and you only notice when you need it most. Rear seatbelts can lower deaths by 50 to 75%, depending on who's buckled up. When you take out sensors and tensioners, the timing of the system is off. Some owners install resistors to fool the warning lights. Dash stays blank, but the computer isn't working right anymore. Crash investigators and insurance companies check those logs after an accident. Nobody's fooled in the end. It's easy to feel invincible until something actually hits you. The stripped look feels raw, but without protection, you're gambling. And for some, that's not even enough. They go on to defeat the electronics that are designed to keep the car on the road in the first place. But there's one final line that most won't cross. The last defense between you and a disaster is just a button press away. What happens when you kill the very thing designed to save your life? The last one is disabling ABS and stability control for full control. 50% fewer fatal single vehicle crashes. That's what electronic stability control does. In SUVs, it cuts rollover deaths by more than 70%. ABS lets you slam on the brakes and still steer away from trouble, not just slide straight into it. That's not a small effect. That's the reason modern crash rates are so much lower. A lot of drivers turn these systems off for slow, technical off-roading. You want to build up a wedge of loose gravel, not have ABS pulsing the pedal. But on the street, fully defeating those systems is like rolling back to the early 2000s. One study found over 50% fewer single-vehicle crashes in vehicles with stability control than in those without it. Once you start stacking lifted suspension, big tires, missing airbags, and no stability control, every drive has risk baked in. The Jeep feels wild and honest, but nobody's catching you when things go sideways. And with all those mods piled on, someone always ends up paying. Whether it's you, your insurance, or the person who just got hit. Who pays first? That's the question most people only think about after it's already too late. Stack all 8 together and you've got a Jeep nobody can ignore. Until the worst day happens. The real question isn't how fast or high you can go, it's how much you're willing to risk to get there. That's it for the wildest illegal Jeep mods. Crazy how far people push it, right? If you want more stories and breakdowns, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.